Oh my God!
Wow, something smells fishy and it's not coming from me this time. Let's face it, Bitcoin had a small but also pretty expected pullback to this level that we've been talking about for literally weeks, guys, which also pretty much correlates exactly almost to the 8,800. We haven't even dipped that far just yet. And as well, we have 3 other charts that line up with this exact pullback area that we'll talk about in this episode. And as well, you guys, if you've been following along on the weekly chart, this is my ultimate buy zone if we actually get here. This has been on the chart for about 2 weeks, and this, in my opinion, could be the exact perfect pullback area. And as well, we'll take a look at this chart because this has some pretty good information as well. We'll get into 5 key reasons why the Bitcoin price fell, because it's not one single thing. There are some liquidations and there are many other reasons why this likely happened. A rejection from 10K being one of the most obvious as well. And you guys, CNBC published an article from a wealth manager saying no need to invest in Bitcoin or gold during this pandemic, which means absolutely that's probably the best thing you should be doing. Pucker up, my little smoochers. Let's do this. Whoa, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin Today, guys. We have a lot to get into, and there is a decent drop that we're seeing. Is the drop concluded, and we'll head right back to 10K? Most likely not. So we'll get into this specifically in this episode. There are some levels that we most likely will have to attain to the downside now, because guys, as we've been talking about for like the past literally 2 weeks, we keep getting rejected at 10K. So like we said in the last video, if we keep getting rejected, we're obviously not going to just sit right under 10K forever. So very interesting. And again, I don't think this news really has too much to do with the Bitcoin from an 11-year-old wallet yesterday. Wow, so we really do got a lot to get into. But guys, we did hit the goal of the video that I posted yesterday of 1,400 likes. We actually smashed through it. So we'll be giving this away in this episode as well. And congrats to Fred, I believe. We'll mail his out, and whoever wins this one, either later today or tomorrow. So all you have to do to enter is comment, and guys, if you're new, make sure to subscribe, smash the comments, leave a like. Wow, so without any further ado, let's get into these charts. Wow. So guys, we can start off with the simplest chart here, just of this pattern that obviously broke to the downside after testing 10K forever. It was like literally 2 weeks, all the way back to, actually, yeah, exactly 2 weeks, May 7th. And then we just broke down out of it. So obviously 10K, which you can see really well on this, is pretty significant resistance, clearly. And the pullback is kind of to the area we've been saying forever, just this 6-year line, guys. This is really important. I'm not going to zoom out again. We spent a lot of time testing here, but actually we could go a little lower, specifically like the 88. We didn't even get into, we went to like 89.30 earlier. Now, as this dump over, I'm not necessarily so sure. I would like to see momentum actually swing to the downside for probably the next day or two, at least the next few days, just to even some things out. And also because we've literally spent the last 2 weeks kind of hugging this 10K, just continuously bouncing and trying to get up there. So again, I think for right now, to even some things out, it wouldn't be bad to get a nice little pullback. Especially on the weekly chart, though, things are showing something different. They're showing bullish optimism. There's a lot of good things on these longer time frame charts. So I think over the next few weeks, and especially the next few months, this is going to continue upwards. I think we're going to get some really nice strong momentum going upwards. But if we're talking in the next few days, then I would prefer if we just continued to maybe even continue to go a little bit lower than this. You guys might disagree with this, but even if we broke through this line for, maybe not significantly or for a long period of time, but breaking through this wouldn't be so bad. And I can show you on this chart as well. We have the simple 50 and the simple 200 where we just had that cross, the simple moving averages. The 200 and the 50 moving averages right here. So this is that golden cross everyone's talking about, which could be very strong support. And as well, this for me would be to come back for like the 3rd time in the past month to test this line once again, this descending line of support right there that we've been in for over the past 365 days. So to the downside, I definitely would be happy if we got that pullback there. And I think it would even a lot of things out. And I think it would just be better for the overall momentum going forward in the next, month or two. I wouldn't have a lot of confidence if we just bounced right here and then just continually, one scenario too is we just continuously test in this area and then have a massive break, which I guess could happen. But ideally, I think we would probably get a pullback in the short term. And as well, at this point, the golden crosses and death crosses kind of do the opposite of what they're traditionally known for, meaning golden crosses lately over the past year or so have provided a lot of dumps, and death crosses have not actually dumped on death crosses like they might be expected to as well. And this cross right now is right around like the $8,000 mark, which is also exactly where the 21 weekly moving average is, about $100 above that, right around like 81.50. So this whole area, which also lines up with this box that I've had drawn on here for 2 weeks, I think would be a really good pullback area. So for example, on a weekly chart, it might look something like this, guys. maybe not that. I think it would be a little steeper than that, actually. Maybe even just something like this or like this. But overall, the momentum, I think, over the next few months is 100% going to trend upwards. And I don't think there's anything that will stop that unless our economy really does suffer like it should be suffering. Because, guys, new unemployment numbers came out today like they do every Thursday here in the US. Another like 2 to 3 million people unemployed. There's currently almost like 40 million people unemployed, guys. It's absolutely nuts. Huge numbers. I think that's like close. I mean, that's a significant fraction of the entire eligible workforce in the US. And yet the S&P, I think, was actually pumping today, right? The stock markets are still going up. So it doesn't make any sense. In the short term, I could see that actually negatively impacting things like gold and Bitcoin. However, I think gold and Bitcoin are long-term going to go up a ton. And I think like the US dollar and some traditional investments are not going to do well over the next year or two. I think a lot of people expect that. It makes a lot of sense because why is the stock market going up right now when people are losing their jobs left and right? Small businesses are closing every single day. Why would the stock market be going up? For one reason, it's artificially propped up. It's not actually really going up. They're just printing money and making it look good when it's not actually good. So that, in my opinion, is the only way we could see a more drastic pullback. Granted, I don't think it would be very long lasting for Bitcoin or gold, but that's one way we could see that. I think a lot of billionaires and people in general are looking to Bitcoin with a lot more interest now because of what's happening with the economy in general. So with that being said, that also lines up kind of with this long area of support and resistance we have going back. This actually goes back all the way to the summer of 2019 as well. So this whole area, like the 88, 82, this entire thing right here, guys. So that's where we are right now. We're actually at the top of the channel right now, and the bottom's right around like the 8,800. So for a short-term pullback, I would say 8,800 is very good. And for a more longer-term pullback, even with like a wick down there over the next week even, when I say longer term, I'm still only talking about maybe like 7 to 10 days from now. 82, anywhere between like $79 to $8,200 is a slightly longer term pullback, which on this chart as well would look like something like this. So for people looking at this, this would look pretty drastic, but overall it's not really that big of a pullback. And as well, if that's the steepest pullback we get, that's not bad at all. Again, I personally don't expect anything like this to happen again with crypto. Remember what happened with this, guys. This was crypto, this was gold, this was literally everything. Everything did this. And as well, for the entire cryptocurrency market cap, what that pullback would look like would be about roughly somewhere between $205 billion to $215 billion of entire cryptocurrency market cap would make sense if we did get a pullback over the short term. But for this entire triangle right here, which goes all the way back to the very end of 2017, the very peak of that bull run, the point of control for the VPVR for the entire cryptocurrency market cap is actually right around $240 billion. And we're about like almost $10 billion above that right now, even after the pullback that we've seen to around $9,200, $9,100 per Bitcoin. So even on this chart, I think this has a pretty good amount of support here. But guys, if we take a look here, where do we start getting a lot more support on the VPVR and a lot of more traded volume is right around that 200, about 190, but $200 billion range, which again, so if we came back to here, you guys can see we see a decent amount of support and a lot of traded volume around this area. So even worst case scenario over the next month, I don't really think anything below very high 7,000s, like 78, 7,900. I don't think anything below that would really make a lot of sense, and I don't think it's very likely. But for the most part, the simplest way to look at it, guys, we bounced at the 6-year trend line. So this is, expected and also cool to see because this is a very important level. But again, if we continue to go down in the next day or two, because like we saw yesterday, we had a pretty sharp drop, a little bounce for a few 4-hour candles, and then another dump, pretty sharp drop, another bounce. We're most likely going to be trading for a few more 4-hour candles here before we decide if we're going to consolidate and break into some sort of ascending triangle pattern and break back up and test 10K yet again, like the 6th time in the past month, or if we're actually going to have to go down and revisit some of those levels that we have down here on the chart, around the 82, a very low is like 78, 7,900. Wow, and as well, I want to cover Joseph Young here on Cointelegraph. He goes over, I'm just going to highlight a few key points from this article, some reasons why this most likely drops. So obviously liquidations on BitMEX, like we were saying over the past week, a lot of people wanted to go long. So what that means, most likely, you know what long squeezes are, where a lot of people are going long, so it gets squeezed and a lot of people lose their positions, they get liquidated, and the price drops. So it says here in the last 18 hours, $53 million worth of longs were liquidated on BitMEX alone, let alone all of the other leverage exchange platforms. It indicates traders were largely expecting the price of Bitcoin to reclaim 10,000, and it didn't. Okay, it fell below. From the absence of a Potoshi pattern of the existence of several miners in early 2009, almost all data also points to showing that Satoshi was not the one and the person that sent that 11-year-old Bitcoin yesterday. So whales using this maybe as a narrative to also affect the price. Most likely it could be the case, but the reason this is significant, the Bitcoin moving from 11 years ago, isn't because it was 40 or 50 Bitcoin. That doesn't matter. It was a very small amount of Bitcoin. But what's interesting about this, by far, the reason I find this interesting is because it's a person that was involved in Bitcoin from the very first month of Bitcoin's existence. So that very fact alone, most likely, it makes it incredibly likely that that person has a big influence in one way or the other, and most likely has a much bigger amount of cryptocurrency as well. Somebody that got in that early could easily have thousands and thousands of Bitcoin, because it was so cheap and it was so easy to get back then. It was so easy to mine back then. So again, it doesn't really matter that it was like 40 or 50 Bitcoin. That's not the important thing. The important thing is there is somebody who's still around today who's moving things around that was involved in the very first month of Bitcoin's creation over 11 years ago. So that's really interesting, and who knows what the impacts could be. I don't think it really matters if it's Satoshi or not, because it's somebody that was either an associate of them or somebody, again, that was just very early involved, which again makes it pretty significant in my opinion. There's also an uptick in miners selling. According to ByteTree data, the miners rolling inventory, or the MRI, is at 102%. If the MRI crosses 80%, it shows miners are selling Bitcoin they mine rather than holding on to it. So clearly Bitcoin is being sold by the miners there. And as well, outflow of Tether exchanges could potentially have something to do with it. What this could indicate is two things. The number of sellers in the market is on the rise, and the number of Chinese buyers may be on the decline. And then the fifth option he has here is that the options market is expanding. So the options market is different than spot and futures exchanges here. Bitcoin's options market is expanding at a rapid rate, with Deribit reaching $1 billion in open interest. Futures and spot prices are different from an options market in that the futures and spot are a lot easier for beginners, and options contracts are usually done by more advanced traders, more people with more experience, people that have a better conceptual understanding of trading and markets in general. And so options trading usually appeals to more professional and full-time traders. Options being one of the three big markets alongside spot and futures, though, the Bitcoin volatility and the diversity of investors within the market is increasing. In the near future, the options market is likely to have more impact on the price trend of Bitcoin. Wow, and CNBC actually published an article from a quote from a wealth manager saying there's no need to invest in Bitcoin or gold during this pandemic, guys. So this is probably the biggest sign that you probably should be investing in Bitcoin and gold. Again, not financial advice, but when these people come out and tell you that you probably shouldn't be investing, then that should be a very big red flag that, oh man, maybe this is actually the best time to be investing. So it starts off here. Everyone's heard of stories of young people striking it rich by investing in Bitcoin. And there's a quote here by Peter Mallouk, the president and chief investment officer of wealth management firm Creative Planning. He says this: "You have incredible companies that we know are not going anywhere selling for half off. First of all, that's not true. These companies are being bailed out by us, and it's very likely that they could be going somewhere. They could be dissolving. They could be ending." So I don't even agree with that first sentence there. "There's no need to go over into the speculative world," he says. "Investors should instead focus on buying stocks of traditionally stable companies that are trading low because of the shutdown." So guys, there's a lot of information just in those few sentences, and I think most of you would agree that this is one of the silliest things you could say. I think that traditional investments have really proven that they are not very trustworthy over the past few months, and I really have no reason to believe that they will be around in 10 years like this article might be saying. Who knows if they'll be here. Wow, so let's actually pick the winner for this because we smashed through the like goal for that last one. Okay, so copy, paste the URL. Get YouTube comments. 425 comments. Okay, that's going to be a hot one. Let's see who the winner is. EEA. Ledger, question mark? Wow, make sure to contact me, EEA. Wow, very cool stuff. Thanks so much for entering the contest. Got a lot of these, so guys, we're going to continue. Make sure to leave your comment below to keep entered for the giveaways. Wow, and as well, guys, we actually added 2 more videos to the course last night, and as well, everybody in T4, if you're watching this, because I do get messages from you guys all the time, if you're watching, feel free to send me an email, and we can just add more courses based on what information you want to be added to it. And again, guys, thanks everyone so much for joining. It's been very fun. Make sure to shoot me an email if you have any questions. Great way to support the channel, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next webisode.